All right, we're back again. We have our friend Devyn Sachs joining us. Thank you, Devyn, for coming on. Had such great views and praise for your last one, so we had to come have you bring it back.
Yes, I am so happy to be back.
All right, awesome, awesome to have you. And as everyone knows who's watched the first go around with Devyn, she is a therapist. She is a frontline worker. She's doing the Lord's work. We know a lot of us probably couldn't do the same. But what a lot of people and what I've heard from the industry, heard from Devyn, is that it's actually really, challenging for themselves. And I wanted Devyn to give a perspective of how maybe she takes care of her own self. Because being in a field of taking care of other people and listening to their struggles is not rainbows and sunshine all the time. As much as Devyn may make it seem like it is because she's a rock star. But so Devyn, I mean, I wanted to give you the floor. I think this is an important topic for people to hear.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think a big part of being a therapist, especially when I first started in the field, was the idea that we can't be our best self as a therapist if we're not taking care of ourselves. I think it's so easy for me to tell my clients, make sure you're practicing self care, make sure you're taking care of yourself. And it's great that I'm able to say those things to my clients. But I feel like I needed to kind of step back a bit and say, okay, am I listening to my own, feedback I'm giving to my clients? It's kind of like practicing what you preach. And I will say, I sometimes struggle with that. I think it's easier for me to talk to other people and say, are you practicing self care? Are you engaging in activities that bring you joy? And I think as I've progressed more into the field, I've really focused in on the idea that if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not going to be a good therapist to my clients. And a big part of that conversation comes with, especially in this field, in healthcare in general, is just burnout.
Mm.
Um, and we work in a field where we're constantly making sure other people are taken care of and supported. And sometimes it's easy to forget that we are human beings too. So for me, I'm always pushing self care, whether it's with my clients or myself. I try to give myself time to, breathe a little bit. It is such a taxing field. Again, like I talked about before, I could see as many as 7 clients in a day. And even at that point, I'm like, I need like a little bit of a timeout.
Yeah.
Um, for me, it's just kind of like finding things that are going to either excite me or, like I said, spark joy. And these don't have to be things that I'm doing with other people either. These can just be things that I do independently on my own. It could be as simple as like going for a walk, going and getting myself a coffee, or sleeping in a little bit later than I normally would, or doing something with, a loved one, a friend, hey, what are you up to later? You want to go for a walk? You want to go grab a coffee? Something that's going to kind of separate the work from the personal life, which can be difficult in this
Mm.
field, as you guys know. So the importance of self care is definitely important, and I try to really practice what I preach. Sometimes it can get a little difficult though, but I try really hard to make sure that I am taking care of myself.
So I wasn't sure if you were gonna, say the golden term, practice what you preach. As you were speaking, I used my chicken scratch to write down,
There
practice what
it
you
is.
preach. I think that is, let's call it what it is. It's cliche, right? It's a
Right.
cliche term. But how can you, when I look at things, like how could you tell someone to do something if you're not willing to do it yourself? And that's something that I've struggled with, like in my own journey of just like coming to, my own recovery of things or trying to be well being and having people telling me to do certain things. And at the end of the day, like I know I can only control what I control. But if I'm, going to be saying, hey, this is really helpful, I have to be doing it. So, you become a little bit of a hypocrite if you don't.
It's
So
it's
that's
so
awesome to point that out.
And it's so true. I feel like all day long, even it could be like very small conversations, and it doesn't even have to be with clients either. We have, like, where I work, there's, the idea, are you taking care of yourself? Do you need more support? What could we be doing better to support you? And I think it gives us a little bit of time to kind of reflect on, am I taking care of myself? How has my work been as a therapist? And sometimes even checking in like with your clients, like, do you feel like, we're making progress? Is there anything I need to be doing more of? And I think it's like you said, it's so easy for me to say to someone, why don't you try this? It could be really helpful.
Mhm.
But I feel like if I have the perspective of, oh, I've tried it before and I'm going to kind of let you know this could be a good idea for you to try, I feel like that's important. Because I can tell whether it's a client, whether it's a coworker, I could encourage them to do, whatever it is that makes them happy. But ultimately, it's their choice, and it's kind of the same thing with therapy. It's their choice. The ball's in their court. But there are benefits to self care and taking care of yourself. Sometimes it's hard to get there,
Yeah.
to start it.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole topic in itself, is taking really the first step. But from what I'm like hearing from you, and it sounds like it's probably with a lot of other people, I can definitely relate to it, is that practice what you preach is very closely related to self-care. It's actually probably goes hand in hand. If you're not taking care of yourself, it probably makes it really hard to practice what you preach. And I know, speaking firsthand, I talk about this concept of balance where, I have a certain mental toughness. Everyone has this mental toughness of, hey, I got 7 appointments. I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm gonna knock it all out. But if you don't have the self compassion for yourself enough to take a walk, to go make a phone call to a loved one on a break, to go, play some music on the ride home and just forget about things, then that is really going to be tough to practice what you preach, and that's a balance in itself right there.
Yeah, and the idea of balance comes up so much in therapy, especially with some of the support groups that I run.
Hmm.
And there's this idea that if I take a break or if I give myself the opportunity to rest, I'm lazy. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing what I should be doing or could be doing. Um, but in reality, you're only going to be your best self if you give yourself permission to rest.
Yeah.
And that's even taken me time to adjust to. I think when I look back at my younger self, I just wanted to go, go, go all the time. I didn't want to take breaks. And I would notice there were like consequences to that.
Hmm.
Um, but I think as I've gotten older, the idea of balance has become such a crucial part of my life, not only as a therapist, but just, in my personal life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard to see things evolve, but like you said, just taking the first step, things really start to unfold in front of you right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even reaching out to someone and saying, I'm not sure how to take a break, or, I'm looking for something new to do in my free time. There are people there, whether it be loved ones, whether it be a mental health professional. There are definitely people there that can, guide you in the right direction. Because it can be difficult sometimes. Like, what do I want to do to, practice self care? How can I, rest and not feel guilty about it?
We having some audio feedback here, or is that just on my end?
I heard it a little bit, but then it went away.
Okay. Well, this is a good time to be. I think as you have talked about your own experiences, and I love to hear like people's little takeaways. But
Yeah.
like, what's like one thing that someone can do for themselves, right? That maybe you do for yourself that has been like such a game changer to help you really, with your own self care and to keep you honest to be like, the person you are.
Yeah, I think for me, and I think you've talked about it on a couple of your climb episodes, is the idea of routine and consistency. To me, my routine is my self care. I feel like without my routine, I'm like totally thrown off. I like to like get up at a certain time. I like to have my morning coffee. I like try to enjoy my 25-minute commute to work. I listen to
Mhm.
music. But I think my routine for me is my self care. I look forward to, getting up and I drive to work. But
Hmm.
I also look forward to the end of the day when I can get in my car and I can drive home and I can enjoy that ride home. Um, I think just kind of checking in with myself too. Do I need to be doing more for myself? Am I burnt out? Am I like, at a point where I need to reach out, to my own therapist? Because I think that's an important piece of how I stay well as a professional. Um, do I need to reach out to loved ones? But
Hmm.
I think overall, my self care comes from my ability to maintain my routine, and sometimes routine gets thrown off, and that's okay. And I think that can be scary as well. But for me, I think staying focused on my routine, the people I have in my corner, knowing that I can reach out to people if I need them, and then just doing things that spark joy, whether it's grabbing a cup of coffee or having a conversation with, my parents or my sister.
Hmm.
There are so many things that we can do to take care of ourselves, and sometimes we don't even realize that they are like self-care activities. So um,
Yeah.
that I think is the nice part, is that there are options, to take.
You're listing off these moments, right, that make you, joyful, and these practices that you have, and I think it's awesome because everyone looks at their calendar and they're like, all right, what do we have? We got the barbecue, we got the family party. They're always looking like, what are we doing next? Let's go out to dinner. But what I think everyone that's watching this should take a page out of your book is you appreciate the small moments to yourself, the ride, the cup of coffee, the phone call. And you say finding joy. Of course, there's joy in family parties and dinners, but if you can find joy in the small things, in the things that maybe not on your calendar, that are in between events, man, it seems, I can just tell from, what the vibe you're giving off, it seems refreshing. It seems that it can push you through weeks full of 7 sessions a day, of hearing a lot of, traumatizing and heavy stuff. So if you can do that and you can find joy in these small days, I'm sure many people, if not all people, can too as well.
Absolutely. And I think, again, there's this pressure to like, we have all these to-do lists, we have things in our calendar, and there's this idea that we must get everything done or we're not productive.
Yeah.
When in reality, like, we don't always have to get everything done to be productive.
Mm.
Sometimes we're going to have to like reroute ourselves, and say, okay, maybe I didn't get everything done that I needed to. However, it's not the end of the world. And I think that's kind of where sometimes that guilt comes in of like, I could have done this or I should have done this. But it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to not get everything done. We're all human. We're gonna, have moments like that. Um, but like you said, just finding joy in the small moments, like the small
Mm.
conversations or your morning commute to work. It doesn't always have to be the big things.
Yeah, that's so true. And you said something in there too that I'm paraphrasing. You didn't say this, but it's like not a big deal.
Yeah.
Listen, you don't get it all done. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Actually, I wrote this down because I thought it was so awesome, and I shared it on my Instagram. So people probably saw this, but Bill Burr had this video, and I'm gonna read it off to you. Um, you're gonna be fine, and if you're not gonna be fine, isn't it? Well, let me try this again. Basically, he says you're gonna be fine, right?
Yes.
And if you're not fine, why don't you just pretend like you're fine? Then, if things aren't actually fine, just deal with it then. And
Right.
it's like so many people are worried. Wait, hand up, me included.
Mhm.
Everyone is so worried. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And if that thing happens, is it really that big of a deal?
Mhm.
If it is, then you take care of it then. Don't take care of it now. I feel like that's the definition of anxiety, in another 15 minutes we should talk about. But I thought it was a good quote.
It's a great quote. It's a great quote.
Yeah, yeah. But listen, Devin, I mean, you were incredible. Everything you do is awesome. I feel as if your field does not get enough credit. And it's a testament if you can get through some stressful days, with all the heaviness that you're dealing with, the good work that you're doing, I think anyone else can. So everyone take a page out of Devyn's book, practice what you preach, focus on
Yes.
self-care,
Yeah.
and lighten up. Everything's going to be all right.
Absolutely. Everything's going to be all right, guys.
Awesome. Well, Devyn, thanks again. And everyone, thanks for joining. And I'll see everyone soon and see Devyn soon. She's too good not to have on all the time.
Thank you, AJ. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you soon.